So with the escalation of tensions with Iran,
a short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
New strikes across Tehran tonight.
ABC News here with new reporting on what the U.S. has targeted underground in Iran.
Pummeling Iranian missile bases.
And David, those strikes on Iranian missile facilities are expected to intensify tonight.
Thousands of Iraqi Kurds have launched a ground offensive in Iran.
Ayatollah Khamenei has been killed in his compound.
Ayatollah has been killed.
Qatar saying an Iranian ballistic missile has struck Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. That is the largest military installation for the United States in the entire Middle East.
Attacks have spread to several countries in the Middle East.
Overnight, Iranian drones attacked the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia.
As long as that continues, many Americans may begin to consider their personal safety in ways they haven't in the past. In general, most folks assume that overseas conflict stays overseas, but that's not always true. For example,
there are new concerns about any potential threats to the homeland after the U.S. attack on Iran.
We are getting more details following a deadly shooting in Texas, now being investigated as a possible act of terrorism.
A deadly mass shooting in Austin, Texas is being investigated for potential links to international terrorism.
We turn now to the possible terror attack in Austin, Texas. Investigators say it may be linked to this war in Iran.
The recent shooting in Austin, Texas, where a gunman fired into a crowd of people gathered outside a bar, killing 3 people and injuring 19 more. The gunman reportedly had clothing on him with Iranian symbols and imagery related to Iranian leadership inside his home when police investigated it. As of now, the exact motive for the shooting is still under investigation. However, the important takeaway is clear. You won't receive a warning text message when violence occurs. When something bad happens, you're the first line of defense for your own life. And given that Iran has been one of the largest state sponsors of terrorism in the world for decades, funding proxy organizations across the Middle East, and given the threats against America made in the wake of this conflict, some may wonder if something like this will occur in America. Will something happen in America guaranteed? No. Would anyone who thinks nothing will happen be naive? Yes. That's why, for many people who never considered owning a gun before, there was a new question being asked. How do I protect myself if something happens and I'm alone? So, if you are considering purchasing your first concealed carry gun, I believe all of the following concealed carry guns right here in front of me make a great deal of sense to consider. And look, prior to someone jumping in the comment section and saying, "You forgot my favorite gun," don't worry. We're not creating a 10 commandments of concealed carry guns. We are simply listing 5 concealed carry guns that I think are ideal for those who are just starting out with a concealed carry. Let's start with the first one, the 6-hour P365. This handgun is one of the main reasons the concealed carry market is what it is today. Prior to the introduction of this handgun, if you wanted a handgun this small, you usually received the handgun with 6 rounds and a firm handshake. Then SIG came along and said, what if we provided a handgun with 10, 12, 15 rounds in a handgun this size? And then the rest of the handgun industry essentially went back to the drawing board. One of the features that makes the P365 unique is the balance. This handgun is small enough to easily carry, yet it is large enough to be a pleasure to shoot. And that is much more important than many realize. Many first-time gun owners enter a gun store believing that the smallest handgun automatically provides the best concealed carry handgun. However, if the handgun is a chore to shoot, then you won't enjoy practicing with it. And if you don't practice, that handgun essentially becomes a very expensive lucky charm. Now, before you finish watching this video, I want to quickly talk about the hearing protection that I'm wearing in this video. These are the AKT1 Blackouts, my favorite wireless in-ear Bluetooth hearing protection, or as I call them, the AirPods of the shooting world. With a certified NRR noise blocking rating of 25 dB, you can listen to music and even take a phone call.
I'm still sore from the heavy lifting that I've had to do, but it's fine.
Hello? What's up? I'm at the range. I'll call you back. The Blackouts also have 6-time hearing enhancement, 10 hours of use, and they're easy to use, so click the link in the description section of this video and grab a pair today. Another major benefit of the P365 is the capacity. You can use smaller magazines for maximum concealability or larger magazines for 13 or 15 rounds without making the handgun enormous. Now, one of the downsides of handguns this small is the grip. Some individuals pick up this handgun and immediately feel like they're holding a television remote control during an earthquake. If that is you, then the next handgun addresses that issue perfectly. The Glock 43X. This handgun exists in a slightly different area than the P365. The major difference is right here. The grip is a little larger, and for many shooters that makes a huge difference because now the handgun fills your hand a little better, which generally makes it easier to control and easier to shoot well. Technically, the grip is longer than that of the P365. However, in the real world, most people are not taking a close look at your waistline to determine whether you are concealing properly, like they're conducting a forensic analysis of your waistline. Additionally, the 43X has tremendous aftermarket support. If the handgun industry had a Home Depot, then Glock would essentially have half of the store. Holsters, sights, triggers, magazines. It is everywhere. Now, the factory magazines for the 43X are 10 rounds. While I believe 10 rounds is a little short in our current world, and especially for the size of this gun, increasing the size of the handgun is quite easily, because if you prefer having more capacity, there are aftermarket magazines that give you 15 rounds that don't add much mass or weight, or actually you might get some weight because of the rounds. But as far as the actual size of the grip, it stays pretty much the same. If you prefer a handgun that shoots more similar to a full-size handgun, then the next handgun offers an interesting combination. The Springfield Hellcat Pro. Now, this handgun is actually one of the ones I carry most frequently, and the reason is simple. 17 rounds of ammunition in the magazine. That is full-size pistol territory. However, the handgun itself is still thin enough that carrying it is relatively easy. I think the Hellcat Pro finds a very good middle ground between capacity, shootability, and concealability. Once you reach this size of handgun, the handgun begins to shoot similar to a full-size gun, which makes practicing a lot more enjoyable. And that matters because if you dislike shooting your carry handgun, you're not likely to shoot it very much, and that defeats the purpose. Now, I mentioned full-size handguns earlier. There is one handgun that has been the gold standard for nearly 4 decades. And if I hadn't listed this handgun on this list, half of you would probably riot in my comment section. The Glock 19. At this point, the Glock 19 is essentially the Toyota Camry of handguns. It is not glamorous. No one purchases a Glock 19 and exclaims, "Oh wow, this is such a cool handgun." However, it gets the job done. Every time. And it will probably continue to function when your grandchildren inherit it. The Glock 19 has been around for decades and has earned its reputation. Reliable, simple, shoots well, supported by virtually every holster manufacturer on the planet. That being said, I personally have changed the role in my carry rotation that the Glock 19 used to serve to this, the Springfield Echelon Compact, which I shoot better, which to me feels better in my hand, and honestly, I just also like the way it looks, and I think the trigger's better on it also. However, the Glock 19 still deserves its respect. It is the gold standard for a reason. Now, let's say you like everything we've discussed thus far. However, you're also concerned with the price of the handguns we've discussed, thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm not paying that for a carry handgun. That is where the last handgun we discussed comes in. Now, I'll admit, I'm a little prejudiced.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
Because I worked with Ruger when this handgun was introduced.
You're biased.
However, the reason I felt confident working with Ruger when introducing this handgun is because I truly believe it is one of the best concealed carry handguns Ruger has ever produced. The amazing aspect of this handgun is the value. Sometimes attempting to purchase handguns currently seems like attempting to purchase a house in Texas after all of the Californians arrived. Prices are all over the map. The Max 9 is able to remain $200 to $300 less expensive than a number of handguns in this category. And yet, it still offers you optics ready slide, good capacity, and one of the best triggers Ruger has placed in a handgun. Every time I shoot this handgun, I always think the same thing. This handgun runs. Not only is the Max 9 a good handgun for the price, it is a good handgun. And when you take into account the price, the Max 9 is one of the best values for someone entering concealed carry. Ultimately, selecting a concealed carry handgun is a personal decision. You may hold one of these handguns and find another handgun that fits your hands better. This happens all the time. What ultimately matters is that the handgun is reliable, that you shoot it well, and that it is a handgun you consistently carry. And once you obtain that handgun, go shoot it, practice with it. Because if you ever faced with a situation in which you need to defend yourself, you will not want to be figuring things out at the moment. Now, I already know someone in the comment section is going to be telling me I should have included a different handgun. So go ahead, what handgun did I miss?